Good morning. Good morning. Good morning from South Africa. Reverend Denise here. I am in the same place. I'm in a different location as we have people here. So I'm so happy to be with you. So good morning. Well, yes, good morning. It's 3 p.m. here for me, but 9 a.m. for you. I'm happy to be with you. We missed last week. I tried desperately to connect, but the moment I was with you, boom, the load shedding started, which is in South Africa. It's when they turn the power off. Several times a day they do that. So for those of you who are new to me, my name is Reverend Denise Schubert. I am streaming live from South Africa, the Greater Kruger Park. I've been here since April. We'll be here till September, and we're talking about emotions today and for the next few weeks, I think. Good morning, Lonnie. If anyone's here with me, please do say hello so I can connect with you in consciousness. And oh, good morning, Brian. So great to see you. So great to see all of you. So all is well here. Hopefully, all is well with you. I just came back from Rio dos Elefantes. It was very, very cold. And beautiful. I look forward to going back this summer when it's a little bit warmer. Hi, Sandy. Wow, great to see you pop up. I miss you too. I miss all of you. I'm actually beginning to feel a little home pull this week for the first time, really. So I'm looking forward to the trip back in September and to see where that takes us. So I'm going to bless our time here together, but I do want to, I do started this conversation last week, which I didn't get to finish. I started it in the blog, which, by the way, those of you who are listening, if you aren't getting my travel blog, well, it's really some pictures with my thoughts. It goes out on Fridays. You can just go to my website and just sign up for it. It's actually quite easy, and it's just, oh, it was already up there. Yeah. So deniseschubert.com. I wanted to talk about, I've been captivated in the last few weeks about who we are as emotional beings and who we are as spiritual beings or spiritual beings on a spiritual path, and what do we do with our emotions and how do we navigate them? Because I've been having lots of them. And I think in truth, everybody has lots of them. And sometimes we really don't know what to do with them. And certainly in some circles, we don't talk about them too much because I think there is kind of this idea that if you're spiritual, if you're really spiritual, that you won't have what we would call negative emotions like anger or regret or revenge or envy. And I'm not so sure that's true. So I thought it was worthy of discussion at any rate. So let me bless us. Hey, Janelle. Let me just bless our time, and then we'll hop back into grief. I wanted to talk about grief this week because I've just been so captivated by this little book I read. So let me bless us. So it's morning for you. So just take a breath, maybe the deepest breath you've taken today. Just simply turn within with me for a moment to that place and space and dimension within us in which we are whole and perfect, that we are connected not only to each other, but to this infinite something that I call God. You can call nature, you can call wisdom, intelligence, quantum field of unlimited possibilities, but that we are not disconnected. We are not alone. We are connected. And so it is from that place of connection and of community that I just bless our time together, knowing that if we got up this morning and put ourselves in front of our computers, that there is something here for us, that we are here to be blessed and to be a blessing. And so I call our time together whole and perfect and good. And so for the love in my heart for each one of you, and for knowing that we move forward in that perfection and in that love, we give thanks. We let it be, and so it is. Amen. Amen. So it's such a deep, interesting conversation really, in so many ways. And I'm not even quite sure how to have it. By the way, I am going to Zoom after the stream this morning for anybody who wants to come dialogue or has questions or share. So I'll post that link when we're done. Um, I shared this week that I read a book by C.S. Lewis, who uh, is actually the author of the Narnia Chronicles, but he was a theologian and a British writer, and he wrote he wrote a journal after his wife. He was married for 4 years. His wife's name was Joy, and she died of cancer. And he wrote down his grief in this book called A Grief Observed. I actually listened to it. It was like an hour and 35 minutes. It wasn't very long. And I included the link in my blog. So if you haven't read it, you can you can read it just by clicking on my blog, or you can go find it. It's very easy to find. It's free. And but I was very, very moved by it. I was moved by it partly because he is was a theologian. He was a man. He was a deeply faithful man of God. I can't remember the church he was in, but it was a Christian church. And his grief was so raw and brought up so much questioning of what he believed in the beginning. Now, when he circled back around, it actually made it deeper, which I think ultimately our emotions do that. But I was moved by it, and I was moved by it because I realized that I was not even acknowledging my own grief. Uh, and if that's true, what I've come to learn through my ministry is that if whatever's true for me is also probably true for some of you, or at least, well, maybe for all of us, that we're so much more alike than we are different. So I thought I had originally talked about 4 particular ideas having to do with our emotions. Let's talk for a moment about the pesky ones, which is really where I started. So many, many people have a lot of what I would call negative emotions. I just want to acknowledge that that's just a label, but a lot of negative emotions like anger or resentment or unforgiveness or that plague us, uh, that aren't necessarily in response to what is like reality, what's happening in the current moment, like what's happening now, but are actually chronic. So chronic negativity or chronic sadness or chronic anger or chronic unforgiveness. And I think that that's a different issue that we can deal with through the 4 ideas, which is really coming to peace with your past, giving up the blame game. So stepping into your power as and your autonomy as a human being and as a spiritual being, checking in your integrity, checking to make sure you're in integrity in your life. Because what I've discovered is if you're not in integrity, and by that it doesn't mean anything good or bad, it means if you're not being true to yourself, then those kind of negative emotions tend to creep in. But I think where I'm at today is I want to talk about grief. I want to talk about how um, C.S. Lewis talked so much about, he was railing really on God. Like, why does it have to be so hard? Like, why would God give great love and then take it away through death? Like, why is it designed that way? He talked about how, when we're happy and when we're grounded and connected, we don't really need God too much. And then when we do really need God, it feels like God slams the door shut and that there's nobody home to really help us. And his writing was so raw and so heartbreaking. But I think the truth is that life is heartbreaking and on so many levels, in so many ways. And that grief is something that we, on our spiritual journey, need to make room for. We need to allow it. We need to make it welcomed. We need to not push it away. I think it was the Buddha who said something once that touched me in a certain point in my ministry when people, it might have been around 9/11 actually, it might have been when there's a great deal of pain and suffering course, as far as I can tell, there's always a great deal of pain and suffering in the world. But I think it was a Buddha who said that our hearts, that we cannot shield our hearts from the pain and suffering. We can't put roadblocks up, because if you can't let the pain and suffering in, you can't let the love in either. One of my favorite quotes from Lewis this week was, if you let great love in, you will have great suffering. I'm paraphrasing him, but it's worth it. I think it's that idea that if we open ourselves to human suffering or to great love, that our hearts will be broken, but that we can't not have our hearts be broken, because then you can't open to anything. So you can't let joy in without letting pain in. And what the Buddha said is that our hearts, because our hearts are of God, because our hearts are of God, that we can bear it, that we can bear the pain and suffering. We can bear it. My sister's on here with me, and in our family, we share our inability to watch animal movies, even happy ones. I'm not quite sure what that is, but it comes up for me here, because whenever you're watching animal movies, even if they're happy ones, Charlotte's Web, right, or what was the Penguin movie, there's always great moments of pain and suffering for human beings. I don't know what that is, but we lose something when we put up a roadblock, when we can't allow ourselves to feel. I'm going to suggest to all of us that it's because we've not experienced our own grief. We've not allowed ourselves to grieve our losses. And I think there's so many losses. We lose people, we lose our youth, we lose our parents. I think aging itself, I shared a little bit this week that I realized that, I mean, I know when I say things like I'm 71 and everyone goes, "Oh my God, you look so good, and and we're so proud of you, and look, you've done this." But, and part of me says, "Oh, thank you. I know, I feel great about it." And all of that's true. But there's also a lot of grief. I mean, that there's never any going backwards. There's never, I'll never, how many of you are Downton Abbey fans? Who's not a Downton Abbey fan? Well, if you are not no, I know at least one person on here is not a Downton Abbey fan, but the dowager, the mother, the grandmother, the mother-in-law, she's very old. She's 75 or 80, and she had a suitor from a younger part in her life who came to her once again and propositioned her. And he wasn't, hi Bill, and he wasn't, and Toby, he wasn't a proper suitor, because the Downton family is a very aristocratic family, so she couldn't go with him. But after he left, she was very sad. She was very down. And her friend comes in and goes, "What is the matter?" And she goes, "I do believe that will be the last time in my life I will get an indecent proposition from a man." And I thought it was so sweet. Here she is, 80 years old, and she felt she was grieving that the indecent propositions may not be coming forward anymore. So, so, so I think that the idea here, what I'm trying to share here, is really to give us all permission to grieve whatever it is that we need to grieve. And I was very happy at the end of C.S. Lewis's journaling and the small book that he wrote, that he came back to God. He came back to really the beauty and the awe and the wonder and the juxtaposition of being human and being spiritual. I kind of want to read, that last, I think I can go to without you losing me. I'm going to see if I can see it without you losing me. he said, sometimes, Lord, one is tempted to say that if you wanted us to behave like the lilies of the field, you might have given us an organization more like theirs. Now, listen, we quote this as ministers, we quote this all the time, right? That we must not stress like lilies of the field. We must not fret. If God takes care of the lilies of the field, why will he not take care of us? And C.S. Lewis is saying, but then you should have organized us like lilies instead of like us. But that, I suppose, is just your kind of experiment, or no, not an experiment, for you have no need to find things out. So God doesn't need to experiment with us because God knows everything. Rather, your grand enterprise, this is the part I love, to make an organism which is also a spirit, to make that terrible oxymoron a spiritual animal. He's talking about us, that we are spiritual animals. To take a poor primate, a beast with nerve endings all over it, which means we endure pain and pleasure, a creature with a stomach that wants to be filled, a breeding animal that wants to mate, and then say, now get on with it, become a god. I just love that. So, hope, oh, oh, no, no, no. Sorry, I went to the wrong place. I want to come back to you. Sorry, confused myself. I went to Zoom. So, so I think that there's something, I think that there's something here that we can soften around, that we can give permission to, that we can, I mean, I think I have cried more this past week than I have in a year. And I've kind of cried a lot this year. But I think it's good, and I think it makes us holy. Now, now this isn't the same conversation as the resentment you feel at your parents. We still have to talk about that, and we still have to really look at how to get into right relationship with the past. Now, I did say, as a foundational idea from looking at this whole gambit of emotion, and by the way, I think it all boils down to allowing ourselves to feel everything in the moment, whatever is there, without resistance, whether it's joy or grief, whether it's hunger or being satiated. But that I'm going to say that I think a lot of people live kind of in this color gray field rather than vivid reds and blues. And this gray field, it's true that you may not feel the pain of the moment, but you're not going to feel the passion of the moment either. You're going to feel nothing, which is really no way to live. I think we need to feel it all fully in trust and faith that we are big enough, our hearts are big enough to hold all of it. By the way, by the way, it is a way to hold the world, because how many of us, um, we see a homeless person, a person selling flowers on a corner, or we watch the news and see heartache, so much heartache. You can understand C.S. Lewis's argument with God, like what kind of God would let what happens happen, right? What kind of God would give so much joy and then give so much pain? Now, obviously, God has nothing to do with joy or pain. God does not give joy or pain. But joy and pain are a part of our experience. And for us to deny that they're a part of our experience is to deny the experience. It's a very deep conversation, right? Like, and we're not in a dialogue right now. We're not in a conversation, so I can't take your pulse and see where you are, if what I'm saying is striking a chord in you, whether or not you've read C.S. Lewis's A Grief Observed. But if you haven't, I think you should, because A grief observed is also a joy observed, or a passion observed, or an ecstasy observed. It's like, can we, as gods, as gods in the flesh, can we be present to all that life gives us in every single moment? So that's my work this week that I'm sharing with you. That's my work. So from a science of mind perspective, or a new thought perspective, we say things like God is good all the time. Life is good all the time. We tend to downplay negative emotions. We tend to want to rush past them. And I think I'm changing my mind a little bit. I kind of want us to dive into them just a little bit. So I think I'm going to leave today here with the observation of grief, a grief observed, to see if you can, if there's any work for you to do in this arena, because I know I had some. If you want to come on the Zoom afterwards, please do. We can chat about it a little bit more, or not. We can just say hello. And next week, we'll dive a little bit more into the coming to peace with the past, because all that past negativity that keeps affecting your future in an adverse way, that we need to take care of that as spiritual warriors. Because you want to, we want to feel our happiness in the now moment, our sadness in the now moment, our anger in the now moment. We want to call all of it, make all of it part of the spiritual path, not like only the good emotions are spiritual. I think we do need to do that. But I want us to live our lives in color, not in gray. All right, so against any will, we might have to not feel. Yes, and actually, C.S. Lewis is, I'm just reading Lonnie's comment here. I don't really know how to share her comment. Lonnie has a comment here that says that grief actually obliterates your ability to not feel things. And essentially that's what Lewis was saying as well, that his grief was so deep and so all-consuming that there was nothing to do but to dive into it. Nothing. And when we don't, by the way, it comes out backwards and sideways. So your health, your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health, and your spiritual health is a function of our being able to be with what is and not be suppressing or oppressing anything. So, yeah. All right. Well, let me give you here. I'm going to give you the this is the Zoom link, and it's just my phone number. So if you just open a Zoom meeting and just type in my phone number, 479-283-9409. So I suppose I can give you the link here, can't I? Here, hold on just a second. It'll take you right here, and I'm going to open up the Zoom room as soon as I am done. But let me pray us out. There you go. Let me pray us out, just in case anybody's here with some sadness. And I see, I mean, everyone, all the names of people who have said hello to me. I love you all, and I know some of your stories. So I think a little prayer would be good. Yes? All right. All right, I'm going to ask you once again to turn within. There's this thing, turning within simply means to let the external circumstances, the world, people, places, and things, your conditions, let them be on the outside for a moment. Let them just sit where they are while you turn your attention, your awareness to the inside. It is in the inside, your heart space, where you're going to come face to face with your true, authentic self. You're going to come face to face with love. You're going to come face to face with holy help. You're going to come face to face with the power and the presence that created you. And in this moment, we turn to that, allowing ourselves to be bathed in its presence. As I speak a word for each and every one of us, each and every person within the sound of my voice. And the word that I speak in this moment is the awareness that our hearts are massive, that they are designed in such a way that they can hold all of it. They can hold the joy, they can hold the grief, they can hold the blessings, they can hold the sorrow, they can hold the anger, they can hold all of it. In remembrance of love as the truth behind it all, the container which is capable of holding all human emotion, and that we have the capacity to hold joy and grief side by side within us. And so I call forth the infinite one as comfort. I call for the infinite presence and power as wisdom and as guidance as we continue to navigate our becoming gods, while doing so in this human body with nerve endings and joy and pain simultaneously. It's kind of the name of this game. And so for our being together today, I'm grateful. I release this word knowing that it is even now being made manifest in reality, in this reality we are experiencing, and saying yes to love as that which is ultimate and true. And so it is. Amen. All right, beloveds, thank you so much for joining me on this Saturday morning. I will see you next Saturday. I'm going to pop off here and pop onto the Zoom. So I'll see some of you in a minute or two. Peace and blessings.